Sigue hablando. Join us on a rigorous step-by-step journey to fluency. I'm Timothy, and this is LearnCraft Spanish. Today we're going to explore the Spanish verb seguir, spelled S-E-G-U-I-R with a silent U. Seguir. This is a complicated verb with multiple meanings. At its most simple use, seguir means to follow. Here's an example. I'm going to follow him.
Lo voy a seguir.
But more often, seguir means to continue. Here's an example. Do you want to continue doing that?
¿Quieres seguir haciendo eso?
So there's something important to notice about this sentence. ¿Quieres seguir haciendo eso? Right after seguir, we've used a gerund. Normally, we've been using gerunds after estar. For example, estás haciendo algo. But seguir is another verb that really likes to be followed by gerunds, especially when it means to continue. Here's another example. He has to continue carrying that.
Tiene que seguir llevando eso.
Now, in English, we rarely say continue doing or continue carrying. Instead, we say keep doing or keep carrying. And that's because the English verb keep means more than one thing. Sometimes it means to keep a thing or to maintain something in your possession. But other times, it's a synonym for continue. Seguir is used any time that keep could mean continue. Let's get some practice translating sentences just using the infinitive seguir. You have to follow me.
Tienes que seguirme. Tienes que seguirme.
She can't keep doing that.
No puedes seguir haciendo eso. No puedes seguir haciendo eso.
The dog likes following him.
Al perro le gusta seguirlo. Al perro le gusta seguirlo.
You have to keep talking.
Tienes que seguir hablando. Tienes que seguir hablando.
I want to continue working in that position.
Quiero seguir trabajando en ese puesto. Quiero seguir trabajando en ese puesto.
All right, now let's start conjugating this verb, and we'll begin with the present tense. By default, since this is a verb that ends in IR, we would expect this to be conjugated just like vivir. So we would have sego, segue, segues, and so on. But seguir gets a stem change when the stem is stressed. The letter E in seg turns into an I. So the most common conjugations are sigo, spelled S-I-G-O, and sigues, spelled S-I-G-U-E-S, sigues. Let's go ahead and practice just these two conjugations. I don't follow you.
No te sigo. No te sigo.
You continue doing the same thing.
Sigues haciendo lo mismo. Sigues haciendo lo mismo.
I keep working with the group.
Sigo trabajando con el grupo. Sigo trabajando con el grupo.
If you keep doing this, it'll be a problem.
Si sigues haciendo esto, será un problema. Si sigues haciendo esto, será un problema.
The other present tense conjugations are sigue, siguen, and then seguimos, which is the only regular one since the stress is not on the stem. Let's practice all the present tense forms of seguir. In this first one, the English says, "We keep being 22 years old." This may seem like a bizarre thing to say, but it's how you might respond if someone already knew that you were 22 several months ago, but expects you to be older by now. Of course, in English, we would more likely phrase this response as, "We're still 22 years old." In Spanish, seguir is often used to replace the word still, which otherwise would be either todavía or aún. So this phrasing may be weird in English, but it's idiomatic in Spanish. Go ahead and try to predict the whole sentence. We keep being 22 years old.
Seguimos teniendo 22 años. Seguimos teniendo 22 años.
She keeps working, but they don't follow her.
Ella sigue trabajando, pero ellos no la siguen. Ella sigue trabajando, pero ellos no la siguen.
If you continue straight, you'll see it around the corner.
Si sigues derecho, lo verás a la vuelta de la esquina. Si sigues derecho, lo verás a la vuelta de la esquina.
This one uses a formal voice. You follow what he says, but I don't follow him.
Usted sigue lo que él dice, pero yo no lo sigo. Usted sigue lo que él dice, pero yo no lo sigo.
Next, let's learn the preterite forms. Seguir's preterite has some slight irregularities in the exact same way that morir does. Most of the forms are regular, including seguí, seguiste, and seguimos. Notice that all of these forms emphasize the letter I near the end. Seguí, seguiste, seguimos. The other two forms don't emphasize that letter I, and for them, the stem changes into a letter I. So we have siguió and siguieron. Again, this is only a very slight irregularity in the preterite, affecting only those two forms, unlike how the present tense irregularity affects almost all the forms. We're going to quiz on the preterite in the second, but first let's do a simple conjugation quiz to make sure you can come up with the right form from memory, including each conjugation's slight irregularity. So, to begin with, what is the present tense nosotros form of seguir? Seguimos. What about the present tense tú form? Sigues. What's the present tense yo form? Sigo. What about the preterite nosotros form? Seguimos. What's the preterite tú form? Seguiste. And what's the preterite él or ella form? Siguió. What's the present tense él or ella form? Sigue. What's the present tense ellos form? Siguen. What's the preterite yo form? Seguí. And finally, what's the preterite ellos form? Siguieron. All right, if you had trouble with that, I recommend rewinding in this episode for some review and then getting out a piece of paper to write out all these conjugations from memory. It's important to have these mentally organized before trying to use them in context. But if you're ready, let's go ahead and practice using the preterite forms in sentences. He followed her for 29 days.
La siguió por 29 días. La siguió por 29 días.
I kept working until 7.
Seguí trabajando hasta las 7. Seguí trabajando hasta las 7.
You didn't follow the steps I told you.
No seguiste los pasos que te dije. No seguiste los pasos que te dije.
They kept talking and we kept listening.
Ellos siguieron hablando y nosotros seguimos escuchando. Ellos siguieron hablando y nosotros seguimos escuchando.
Now let's move on to the subjunctive forms. These all have the stem change, so they're all based on siga. So we have siga, sigas, sigan, and sigamos. Here's an example. They want us to keep thinking about that.
Quieren que sigamos pensando en eso.
Let's practice the subjunctive forms of seguir. I want her to continue talking.
Quiero que siga hablando. Quiero que siga hablando.
Maybe I'll continue until I'm 25.
Quizás yo siga hasta que tenga 25. Quizás yo siga hasta que tenga 25.
I hope we continue going to the west.
Espero que sigamos yendo al oeste. Espero que sigamos yendo al oeste.
In this one, use a formal voice. I stopped talking so that you continue watching the movie.
Dejé de hablar para que usted siga viendo la película. Dejé de hablar para que usted siga viendo la película.
I want you to follow them, and I want them to continue.
Quiero que los sigas y quiero que ellos sigan. Quiero que los sigas y quiero que ellos sigan.
The imperatives are all based on forms that you already know. So the basic informal second-person imperative is sigue. For example, keep doing that.
Sigue haciendo eso.
It's actually pretty common to use this imperative to mean follow. In this next example, we'll use a contraction. Follow me.
Sígueme.
And then a negative imperative for the singular second person would use sigas. For example, don't keep doing that.
No sigas haciendo eso.
The other imperatives are all exactly like their corresponding subjunctives. So if you're using usted, you'll use siga. Here are a couple of examples. Keep searching.
Siga buscando.
Please follow me, madam.
Por favor, sígame, señora.
And then if you're talking to a group of people, you'll use sigan. And to say let's follow or let's continue, you'll use sigamos. Here are a couple of examples. Let's keep talking.
Sigamos hablando.
Follow me, everyone.
Síganme todos.
Let's practice the imperatives. Keep talking so we can know it.
Sigue hablando para que podamos saberlo. Sigue hablando para que podamos saberlo.
This one uses a formal voice. Follow that person to your house.
Siga a esa persona a su casa. Siga a esa persona a su casa.
In this one, you're talking to a group of people. Follow me to the building.
Síganme al edificio. Síganme al edificio.
Follow me to the school.
Sígueme a la escuela. Sígueme a la escuela.
In this one, you're talking to a group of people. Keep trying to call her.
Sigan tratando de llamarla. Sigan tratando de llamarla.
This one uses a formal voice. Follow me to the hospital.
Sígame al hospital. Sígame al hospital.
Let's keep working until they run out.
Sigamos trabajando hasta que se acaben. Sigamos trabajando hasta que se acaben.
Don't keep saying you're 21. That's not your age.
No sigas diciendo que tienes 21. Esa no es tu edad. No sigas diciendo que tienes 21. Esa no es tu edad.
There are just a few other forms of this verb that are fairly common. The participle is seguido, which is regular, and the gerund is siguiendo, which is slightly irregular. Here are a couple of examples. She has kept doing those things.
Ella ha seguido haciendo esas cosas.
Are you following me?
¿Me estás siguiendo?
Let's practice these. They are following us.
Nos están siguiendo. Nos están siguiendo.
We have continued working on this.
Hemos seguido trabajando en esto. Hemos seguido trabajando en esto.
She has continued in a queue for hours.
Ha seguido en una fila por horas. Ha seguido en una fila por horas.
She is 24, so she isn't following me.
Tiene 24, así que no me está siguiendo. Tiene 24, así que no me está siguiendo.
And finally, the future tense forms are particularly common for this verb. For example, it's very common to word things like this. I'll keep doing this.
Seguiré haciendo esto.
Fortunately, all the future tense forms of seguir are exactly what you'd expect. Seguiré, seguirá, seguirás, seguirán, and seguiremos. Let's practice these. You will continue on this path.
Seguirás en este camino. Seguirás en este camino.
They'll continue being friends until they're 26.
Seguirán siendo amigos hasta que tengan 26. Seguirán siendo amigos hasta que tengan 26.
She won't follow you, but I'll follow you.
Ella no te seguirá, pero yo te seguiré. Ella no te seguirá, pero yo te seguiré.
We'll continue talking until tomorrow.
Seguiremos hablando hasta mañana. Seguiremos hablando hasta mañana.
All right, it's time for our final quiz. I know this episode has been pretty intense, but it's always tough to learn a new irregular verb with multiple meanings. We're going to keep the quiz fairly short and simple, but of course you can always dig deeper at lcspodcast.com/166 for more practice. All right, now for the quiz. She just now followed the line.
Acaba de seguir la línea. Acaba de seguir la línea.
Let's continue going to the north.
Sigamos yendo al norte. Sigamos yendo al norte.
She wants me to continue until the city center.
Quiere que siga hasta el centro de la ciudad. Quiere que siga hasta el centro de la ciudad.
We'll keep working on this online.
Seguiremos trabajando en esto en línea. Seguiremos trabajando en esto en línea.
She has been following me.
Me ha estado siguiendo. Me ha estado siguiendo.
This one uses a formal voice. Follow your ideas.
Siga sus ideas. Siga sus ideas.
My friend has followed my work.
Mi amigo ha seguido mi trabajo. Mi amigo ha seguido mi trabajo.
In this one, you're talking to a group of people. Follow the steps I gave you.
Sigan los pasos que les di. Sigan los pasos que les di.
I don't want them to continue.
No quiero que sigan. No quiero que sigan.
He'll continue until he sees the front.
Seguirá hasta que vea el frente. Seguirá hasta que vea el frente.
Keep talking so we follow you.
Sigue hablando para que te sigamos. Sigue hablando para que te sigamos.
We didn't follow the steps you gave us.
No seguimos los pasos que nos diste. No seguimos los pasos que nos diste.
We continue living in the South.
Seguimos viviendo en el sur. Seguimos viviendo en el sur.
He continues to be 27.
Sigue teniendo 27. Sigue teniendo 27.
I'll follow my ideas, so please follow me.
Seguiré mis ideas, entonces por favor sígueme. Seguiré mis ideas, entonces por favor sígueme.
In this one, you're talking to a group of people. Follow me east.
Síganme hacia el este. Síganme hacia el este.
You continue thinking I'm 23, but I'm 28.
Sigues pensando que tengo 23, pero tengo 28. Sigues pensando que tengo 23, pero tengo 28.
I want her to continue until the corner.
Quiero que siga hasta la esquina. Quiero que siga hasta la esquina.
They continue working, but I'm not continuing.
Ellos siguen trabajando, pero yo no sigo. Ellos siguen trabajando, pero yo no sigo.
For more practice with all of this, go to lcspodcast.com/166. In tomorrow's episode, we'll learn the verb terminar, which means to finish or to end up. This show is brought to you by LearnCraftSpanish.com. The Spanish voice in this episode was our coach Jimena Lama Rondon. Our music was performed by the Seattle Marimba Quartet, and I'm Timothy, encouraging you to do the hard work of learning Spanish. Acquiring a second language is one of the most fulfilling things you can do, so start your fluency journey today at lcspodcast.com.